Christine Jardine does now join me. Hi, Christine. Sorry about that. I tried to come to you a little earlier and I didn't realise that we were sticking things in to make the connection clear. It happens. I reminded folk at the beginning that you're Member of Parliament, Liberal Democrat for Edinburgh West, but also spokeswoman on Treasury, Brexit, Europe and trade. So my first question is, as it were, with your Edinburgh West hat on, how do you feel about Nicola Sturgeon's announcement yesterday that the hospitality sector lockdown in Scotland is to be extended for a further week? Is it a sector that can afford that?
It's not a surprise. We did suspect it when she announced that there was going to be a lockdown, that it would continue, but it's not affordable, really. The sector needs more help. All sectors do. The Chancellor, nationally, the Chancellor needs to extend furlough beyond the job retention scheme, not the job support scheme. The original job retention scheme needs to be extended beyond the end of this month, right up until next summer.
Okay,
you're more flexible.
Sure, you're a practical grown-up politician as well, rather than just simply posturing. I know that. And you know as well as I that he's not going to do that because he can't afford to politically. How far does he have to go in topping up the money that is available to folk who are struggling under Tier 2 status?
See, I don't think that's acceptable, that he's making a political stance. I think in this, if ever there was a time when the public in this country needed us to make a practical stance, a public-spirited stance about the well-being of the country, this is it. The Chancellor said he would do whatever it takes, and that's what we need him to do now, whatever it takes. It's ridiculous that we're not continuing. The government last night voted against the free school meals. He said he would do what it takes. We need to hold him to his word. He needs to top it up as much as it needs to be topped up. That sounds, I know people will say, oh, that's rash. Where is the money going to come from? Borrowing has never been cheaper than it is at the moment.
Yeah, but that's not good. You're also, remind folk as well that you're a spokesperson for Treasury matters.
Yeah.
And indeed trade. Those interest rates may be low at the moment, and indeed the IMF say just keep chucking money at it. But the simple fact of the matter, Christine, is that the vast majority of people in this country are not going to get COVID coronavirus. The vast majority of people in this country are not going to be...
We don't know that.
No,
we don't know that.
Well,
we don't know that the vast majority of people in this country are not going to get coronavirus. We do know that a lot of people so far have got it. We do know that almost 250,000 people worldwide have died. We know it's dangerous. We don't yet have a vaccine. And what we need, I'm only holding the Chancellor to his word. Yeah. He said, whatever it takes. And whatever it takes is more than the government is doing at the moment. But the single most important thing that we need from the government at the moment is a strategy. Not this continual chopping and changing and knee-jerk reaction. Oh, we'll put money here and we'll do this and we'll do that. And Greater Manchester was the perfect example. The money's on the table, the money's not on the table. The money's back on the table. That's no use. Business needs certainty. Households who've lost an estimated third of their income in this need certainty. Whatever it takes is what he said, and whatever it takes is what we should be getting from this government.
Why didn't your party leader make that point then at Prime Minister's questions yesterday? When he had a chance to ask a question, he ended up asking about a mobility bike for a child.
No, he was asking about a very important issue, which
I'm
is
not saying
about,
it's not important, but from what you've just said to me, you say I'm wrong about the threat and danger to all of us from COVID-19 and coronavirus. Your party leader chose that magic moment with the entire country that can watch PMQs on telly to ask a question about a kid's mobility bike.
I think, to say he was asking about a kid's mobility bike is to dismiss a very important issue. He was asking about the support for carers in this. And that is something which has been overlooked. It's one of the reasons why we now support a universal basic income, because carers need very often the extra support that government can provide. And in this, that is vital. Carers, stay-at-home parents, all the people who lost their jobs, the children that the government yesterday decided don't deserve help, their families don't deserve help to feed them. All of these things are what we are expecting the Chancellor to do. And this is what we are asking continually. I asked yesterday about the economic situation.
Sure.
We'll be asking about it again today. We need to be looking at how the people who are being worst affected by this get support. And that's what we want the Chancellor to do. Whatever he takes is what he said, and whatever it takes is what we now need.
And as a Treasury and Trade spokesperson, Christine, are you absolutely convinced that a national, comprehensive lockdown is the answer, as opposed to selective regional lockdowns by varying degrees where there is an identifiable problem?
The advice that Sage gave was that what the country needs is a circuit breaker. A circuit breaker which will give us the opportunity to get the R number down. That's the advice. I'm not a medical person, a scientific person. I follow the advice that I'm given, and that's the advice that we've been given. We've also seen the confusion that has been caused by, not just in England, but in Scotland as well, by having some areas that are in one tier and some areas that are not. I live in Edinburgh. So I'm told that not to leave Lothian Health Board unless I need to for work, which as an MP I do. But that doesn't make sense. One of my colleagues lives in North East Fife. It's only 20 minutes drive away. Completely different conditions. The other side of the Forth Bridge. And you've got companies who, are in both. They don't know what they're doing. What we need at this moment is a circuit breaker. We need to follow the scientific advice about the best way to deal with this. The best minds in this country have said, some of the best minds in the world, you need a circuit breaker. The Prime Minister needs to listen.
Well, they also make the point, don't they, that the reason you support the argument, if you do as you do, the idea of a circuit breaker, lockdown, call it what you will, fire break, I think they call it in Wales, is that it buys time. What happens with that time that you buy? Is it to try and make progress on vaccination? Is it to try and make progress on test and trace? Because sure as sure, one thing it's not going to do, Christine, is get rid of the coronavirus.
That's a very good point. We need to use the time. If we have a circuit breaker, we need to use the time. We need to use it well. We need to fix test and trace. One of the most disappointing things about this as a politician is that over the summer, we had an opportunity, the government had time, not just the UK government, but the Scottish government as well, had time to come up with a test and trace system, which is not just called world breaking by the Prime Minister, world leading, actually is world leading. That's what we need to use the time for. We do need to use the time for the vaccine as well. We do need to use the time to help companies get back on their feet.
Okay.
We use the time and we use it properly in a way that, frankly, both, of our governments in Scotland failed to do over the summer. And we need them to take the opportunity again in a circuit breaker to try and get people back on their feet, to get good test and trace, to protect the NHS, get the R number down and, help the scientists who we are told are close to a vaccine, which will be the only thing in this which will actually help us if we're going to beat coronavirus and get through this. It's the thing that we really need.
Finally, let me pick out from your list of responsibilities Europe. We've got we've got a minute and a half left. I know your position and indeed the position of your party on Brexit, and I don't want to rehearse those arguments, and I'm sure nor do you. But do you sense, given your experience in this matter, that Lord Frost and Michel Barnier and the rest of them might seriously be finally entering the end game where we do get a deal?
I do hope so.
I know, but do you think so?
Well, I've gone back and forward on this because, again, certainty is the thing that we need, business isn't getting. I would hope from the fact that Michel Barnier insisted that the talks would continue when our government was saying, no, the talks are over, the Europeans are not willing to talk. The EU came along and said, yes, we are.
Well, to be fair, the Europeans said we were the ones who had to give ground. They were absolutist. They've now conceded that both sides need to give a little ground.
But both sides need to give a little ground. What both sides need actually is a deal. That's vital for business in this country. They've had now 5 years of uncertainty from before we had the referendum in 2016, which is 4 years ago, and then 4 years of uncertainty about what it was going to mean. Would there be a deal? Would there be a withdrawal agreement? Would there be another referendum? What was actually happening? We had one leaving date, which we didn't, when we didn't leave, and then we had, transition period. All this confusion has been bad for British industry, for every employer in this country, yourselves included, everybody in this country. The uncertainty has to end. We have to get a deal, and we have to get a deal which will protect British industry and will incentivise investment and will will turn this. You know, the government talks a lot about manufacturing. Well, they have to come up with a deal which does that. And actually, they need something which has data equivalence in it so that the security in this country is protected. Michael Gove said this week that, you know, we would have the best security in the world. And we all saw the expression on Theresa May's face. She knows, and she was, you know, telling the world from the expression on her face that we need that data equivalence for our national security. And that's one of the things that we need the government to get in this deal. And I just hope that they are as close as we think.
Well, you hope that we are as close as we think, and that's
we think they're close, but they have to get it done.
I'm just echoing it because I suspect whichever side of the argument you're on, I reckon that's something that is common ground for all of us. Christine Jardine, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. That's Christine Jardine, Liberal Democrat MP for Edinburgh West and the party's spokesperson on Treasury, Brexit, Europe and trade. Quite significantly there at the end, Christine Jardine saying, just get on with it. And remember, the Liberal Democrats, one of the great forces against Brexit, and consistently from start to finish. Now Christine Jardine there saying, let's now just get on with it. Hope it's a good deal and let's get out the other side.